Hello and happy Halloween, everyone. Welcome to today's show. I am so excited to have the fun opportunity to bring you guys some spooky stories today and doing this Past Lives Halloween special spectacular. I hope that you guys have fun with me today. Before we dive into it, if you don't know who I am, my name is Jake. I am a hypnotherapist, a quantum guide. I use hypnosis in my practice one-on-one as well as in groups to help folks connect with their inner wisdom, their knowing, connecting with their higher selves, their past lives, their future lifetimes, really all to help them be on their highest timeline here and now in the present moment, making their current lifetime the best possible. So all that aside, today is the Halloween special. We've got Halloween coming up on Saturday, no, Friday, and I'm so excited for this time of year. It's a lot of fun for me. I definitely have fond memories of trick-or-treating and dressing up, doing Halloween festivities, carving pumpkins, all that stuff when I was younger. And as an adult, I have certainly done my best to keep the magic going. I'll show you guys quick. This is my absolute, one of my favorite pieces of clothing that I own. It's very much a grandmother's sweater, right? Got all of the Halloween spookiness going on. We've got ghosts, haunted house on the back. There's some little bats. And I just love this thing. I got it for like a couple bucks at Urban Outfitters of all places. It was like in their discount rack. It's like, if not vintage, like it was definitely owned by someone before they bought it. And yeah, I love it so much. I wear it every single year around Halloween time, at least a few times. And some of the little beads are falling off and stuff like that at this point. But I just couldn't see myself doing the Halloween special without it. I've also got my little tiger's eye bat as well. So let me know how you guys celebrate, what makes, the season fun for you. Maybe you lean into the more of the like harvest foods and stuff like that, or maybe you're into the spooky stuff as well. I've got my lights going on in the back too. So hopefully that's not too distracting for you guys. I might turn the flashing one off. If I can reach it. There we go. Sorry, guys. It just was distracting me, so I wanted to be able to focus. All right, guys. So before we jump into the show for today, first I wanted to remind you guys, not of the YouTube, remind you guys of my site here. Head on over to the site if you're interested in learning more about my services, or if you want to get in contact with me. If you go to the bookings as well, you will see on the bookings page that I've got all my offerings here, and it is the end of October here very soon, as when this is going live, because I am pre-recording this one. So when this is live, you will have one more day to get your 10% off of the past life services. So if you're looking for higher guidance hypnosis, if you're looking for quantum healing hypnosis technique, or just straight past life regression, you've only got one more day as of this show airing to get that 10% off. Because I'm doing that through the end of October, and after that, the deal will be gone on my past life services. So with that in mind, make sure you take advantage of that. For those of you who missed it, we did have a group workshop this past weekend, Past Lives workshop on Saturday, the 25th, and that was a lot of fun for those who joined. It's just always wonderful to explore in that group setting. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you follow me on social so that you can see when those next offerings are coming. I don't do the group workshops all of the time, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And then I did want to spend a moment here. So like I said, I'm pre-recording this, so don't pay attention to those lives. I did want to point your attention back to this Origin of Fear hypnosis special. This was a session that I did with Corbin, and we explored his blood phobia. So we got to the root and the source of that fear for him. And that was rooted in a past lifetime. And we talked with his higher self. We were able to find some pretty profound healing as well as some really wild information. Excuse me, my throat here. It's it's that time of year, you know. So if you have not checked out that full session recording, make sure you go check that out. I also just this last weekend put out a 3-eye atlas meditation, and I was just feeling this call to give and share a tool for connecting with that celestial energy, with those light codes. And so, excuse me, guys, if that resonates with you, I encourage you go check out that meditation as well. And then I did also want to say, since today is kind of the last in the series of Past Lives shows, I wanted to pull up the other ones that I've done. So today, this one that you're watching is the Past Lives Halloween special. Obviously, that will be aired. This was yesterday's show when this is airing. If you're looking for more stories, though, check out the Past Lives Revealed or the Exploring Past Lives show. So those two both have other session stories. If you're looking for tips and tricks on uncovering your own past lives, how to do that on your own, some of those ways that I suggest, kind of dipping your toes into that. Or if you're looking for a regression, whether one-on-one or in a group setting, this is a great show to check out if you want some more information on what's that's like, some of my tips and tricks for experiencing it. And then diving deeper into what past lives can reveal for you and what, I mean, I talk about that kind of all month, but this first show that I did back on 3 weeks ago, Past Lives Explained, this one's a great one if you want to really dive down that rabbit hole and explore more of kind of the basics around past lives and what can be helped through them, how they can help you, what might be those signs to look for that are saying, hey, check out your past lives. So all in all, I have quite a few shows this month around the past lives theme. And if you haven't checked those out, I definitely encourage you to, especially if you enjoy today's content, because today is closest to Halloween. It is all about the spooky stories, those stories that were, that kept me on the edge of my seat. And I'll do my best to tell the story to keep you on the edge of your seat too. But exploring past lives with clients is something that is just a lot of fun for me, on multiple different levels. I'm a very curious person. I like to understand what's going on, especially when it comes to something mysterious and unknown like a past life. I sometimes have an idea of what we will explore during a session. Occasionally I'll have a client who has had maybe a reading with someone and they've brought this past life to this client's attention, or maybe they've had a meditation experience that brought forth memories or knowledge around these past lives. And so occasionally I'll have a client come into a session saying, hey, I want to explore this specific past life. And if that's the case, sometimes I have a little bit of information before we go in, but most of the time, like 99% of the time, it is a mystery of what will come up and what we'll be exploring. Even if the client has specific needs or specific desires for what they want to get out of the session, I always lean on the higher self to bring forth what's most appropriate. And so with that, there's always a little mystery. There's always a little intrigue with what's going to come up, what's going to come through, how will that information present itself. And I just feel like I need to back my camera up a little bit so you guys can see more of my spooky vest here. It's so fun. It's so fun. Anyway, so most of the time it is a mystery. It is unknown what is going to come up and what we might explore. And with that, it's always a good time. It's always exciting because I don't know what we're digging into, and so my curiosity, my own higher self leads us through that session. And so dropping into the past life experience, exploring that with a client, I'm following my intuition and doing my best to pay attention to what comes up for them and what they see. So, all in all, today I'm not going to dive too much into what are past lives or how to experience your past lives. We've covered that in other shows. Today's really just about the session stories and the ways that these spooky, mysterious, thrilling experiences coming through in sessions impacted the client's current lifetime and what was important for them to know about that experience, what they needed to see or feel or know in regards to that past life in order to help them in their current lifetime. And there always is a reason. So I had quite the interesting session a while back with a client who it really wasn't clear what was going on at first because when she dropped into this lifetime and we're starting to get oriented and starting to get some of this information flowing through, there was a lot of disorientation in the client. And this isn't always a red flag or always something to pay attention to because it can sometimes be disorienting, depending on how you drop in, where you drop in, what that experience is that your higher self is showing you. And so there can be some very natural disorientation as you get settled in, as you start to acclimate to that past life and the information flowing to you. This seemed a little different though. There was some weird things going on that didn't really make sense. So we dropped in and pretty shortly afterwards, my client was aware that she was a young girl, that she was pretty young. And it was nighttime. She was standing like outside of uh her house. She described wanting to go inside but not being able to. And it was just a very strange situation, strange scenario to be witnessing because this young child is just outside in the dark, alone, looking longingly at the house, but not being able to go in. It was very strange, and so as we went along, I tried to figure out what was going on. We ended up rewinding, going backwards in time to sort of understand what led up to this point because we weren't really getting to a clear answer on what was happening, what was going on in this lifetime. And so we rewind back and we end up witnessing um, a very interesting moment in time because the details themselves, the information itself, wasn't necessarily too concerning, but there was feeling, there was emotion there that made it much more disconcerting, much more um, threatening, really. And what we saw was a day where this my client, this young girl in this past life, was taken by a family member, and uh, we were fairly certain that it was an uncle or a cousin, some relation to family. But she was taken by this family member, taken on a motorcycle ride, and the ride itself didn't seem threatening. There wasn't anything that seemed overtly horrible about what was going on in that moment, but my client kept describing this feeling of like uncomfortable, being not wanting to be with this man, like not knowing what he was going to do or what was going to happen. And there ended up being uh, a pretty dramatic, pretty traumatic death that happened on that motorcycle ride, and they ended up not getting uh, to wherever they were going on that trip. But what we realized was that this client was being abused by this family member, and it was a pretty dark situation. And she ended up dying in that lifetime pretty young. And and what we realized was that she was in fact on the spirit side already when we dropped into that lifetime. That first scene that we saw where she was outside the house, it was dark, she was on the spirit side already. She had passed over. She had transitioned. And this was a lifetime where she transitioned really young as a child. And I've seen this in other situations with other clients where when when the soul dies at a young age, when they die physically young, there can be disorientation after death. There can be sort of this unknown um, uncomfortableness, like not knowing where to go or what to do, feeling unresolved, especially with the relationships that were left behind, the family, the situations that this soul didn't get to complete, and so there can be this disorientation. And so that's what we were picking up on, but couldn't necessarily understand right away why that was, what was going on in that first scene. And so it was really wild because we we circled back and then we were able to understand that my client had died and that was why she was sort of mysteriously out in the dark. And so there was definitely this vibe of like haunting, of like lurking around, waiting, wanting some sort of resolution, but not really knowing how to go about it or how to find it. And it was also interesting because we didn't actually see that moment of death. We There was a knowing around what happened, but the higher self protected my client and didn't show that actual moment of death because they said it would be too traumatic for my client. And speaking of the higher self, it's always interesting to be able to ask the higher self, okay, why did you show this lifetime? Why did this one come up? And especially in this situation where clearly there was something with the death in that lifetime, as there often is. So often our past life deaths can linger with us because they were traumatic, because they were eventful or impactful beyond that physical lifetime, and they have an imprint on the soul. And so in this situation with this client, the client's higher self said they wanted to show this because some of the pain that my client was feeling in this lifetime, some of the chronic pain that she felt was tied to that lifetime and the events that led up to um, that scene we saw, the death scene, and they the higher self told my client, and this was really interesting. They said that living her life in this lifetime, this present lifetime, would have an effect back through time on that past version of her. And fulfilling her purpose in this lifetime, uh, living her life to its fullest in this lifetime would offer completion, uh, offer closure in ways to that past life version of her. And I didn't necessarily fully understand this, and I don't necessarily fully understand this now. There are some of these concepts and these ways that the higher self speaks, and the ways that they talk about um, these connections through time that can be hard for us as humans to really wrap our minds around and really understand, because most people would say, well, you can't change the past is set in stone. But what I've seen in my work is that that's definitely not the case. Um, there's nuance to it. There are sort of, um, I don't want to say rules, but like rules is the best word that I can find. There are like rules to it, um, as there are to anything um, in the cosmos, any processes, um, any system, right? Uh, but it was really interesting to hear this explanation from the higher self after such an interesting lifetime being shown. And it's interesting too with this idea of needing completion, um, needing sort of a a another do over or another. It's almost like her living her life in this lifetime fulfilled what wasn't fulfilled in that lifetime. And so that was kind of the feeling that I got as the higher self was explaining this. And ultimately they showed her this lifetime. They showed her what they showed her so that she could begin the process of releasing that part of her, of helping that part of her soul to find resolution, find peace, find healing, um, and find closure. And so this was definitely something where the higher self wasn't was basically allowing her to see um, part of what her purpose was in this lifetime in the healing of that past life, and it was really beautiful. What's really fascinating, though, when we explore past lives is that we oftentimes do get to see these death scenes or to experience these last moments of life, what what happens in that moment, but then also what happens afterwards, that moment of transition, as well as then what happens on the spirit side. And so this lifetime for this client was an example where we got to see a little bit of what happens on the spirit side. And just as there is lots of variety in physical life experience, or um, the ways that each of us moves through our physical life, there's also differences on the spirit side. And so this was a situation where there wasn't closure, there was some confusion on the soul level. And so that soul got essentially stuck, or they got uh, trapped in that loop there in that lifetime. I've had other moments where I had one session where the client transitioned and viewed the body from like above. And I've seen this a few times where that moment after death comes, whatever happens, happens, and they're on the other side. And there's this viewing from above. And I've had clients describe seeing their body lying there, seeing the family all around, seeing the emotions, the tears, um, the sadness, whatever those emotions are, being able to see that family, uh, mourning them in the physical still. And so those are some interesting moments as well, and oftentimes moments where we can get real clarity and real information on that lifetime and those relationships, those experiences they've had. This is also a moment, though, that moment after transition where sometimes the spirit meets other loved ones who have already passed. And so I had one really beautiful session where my client transitioned, they passed over, and they were shown um, sort of the life review moment. And this looks different for different clients, but this client described it looking like um, she was standing up on the edge of like a cliff or a mountain, up really high with her husband in this lifetime, as well as her husband in that past life. And so, partner throughout time. And she's standing there with him, and they're looking down over her lifetime, and they're reviewing what happened. And she described it looking almost like the patchwork of fields, where she would look at this situation in life, and then she would move on to that experience, and then she would see another experience, and described reviewing this with her partner, and that they were reviewing that lifetime to understand what came up, what they worked through, what they processed, as well as understanding then what was left unresolved, or what do they want to try again next time. And it was uh, it was a beautiful moment, like the joy and the happiness that she saw, or that I saw on her face as she interacted with her partner once more on the spirit side, um, knowing that moment of death, that physical death, isn't the end. Being able to see and feel and experience what that after period is like, what life beyond this physical lifetime is like, was a pretty profound experience for her. And I've had other clients as well who have explored the spirit side too. And there can be really interesting revelations, really interesting information that comes through on that side, because it is a different place than the physical. And even when we're working in more of the astral realm with hypnosis, we're working more in the subtle dimensions, the subtle realms. there is nuance between the information that can come through when someone is in a past lifetime versus on the spirit side, and that's something that that I've observed through my session experiences with clients, and it's always interesting to get that opportunity to explore in new and exciting ways, um, and yeah, it's really fascinating work. So all in all, that sort of spirit side, um, lifetime, that experience of dropping in when the client was already dead was pretty wild. And then being able to understand what led up to that, uh, and more importantly, also why was that happening? Why was the client trapped there um, in that experience, in that situation, in that lifetime? And that's really, I think, the most important thing to understand about past life work is that it can be fascinating, it can be curious, curiosity. My gosh, you got y'all my words this morning. It can be interesting. Um, our curiosity can peak, and we're like, oh my gosh, what is this past life story, or what's the drama going on here? But it always is so much more important, to understand how it connects to our current lifetime, how it connects to our current experiences and what we're going through now, because this is the most important lifetime that you're living. Past is interesting, and it can help us in a lot of different ways, but it's not something where we want to get too distracted by it, because our current lifetime is where we're at, where our focus is, where our soul is calling us to live and to uh, work through the experiences and lessons of the now moment. And so, anyway, getting off on my tangent there. So, another session story that I wanted to share with you guys was a really fascinating one. So this was one that really had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I talked about the ways that um, sessions are, like, each session experience is unique, and each uh, past life that I explore is a mystery at the start. I don't know what we're gonna see or experience uh, or uncover as we explore. And sometimes the story is pretty thrilling. There is anticipation, there's intrigue, there is drama, uh, there's interesting unknown happenings going on. And so this lifetime was one of those where I was really unsure most of the time what was going to happen or what direction this was going to go. And it was a situation with a lot of unknowns and a lot of mysterious, strange happenings. And that led to me being, like, on the edge of my seat most of the time, of like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen next? Well, what's going to happen now? And so it was a really strange lifetime, because we dropped in, and my client described a sort of futuristic cityscape. It wasn't like flying cars and flashing lights, but uh, referenced like a book series that talked about like a dystopian future. And so it was kind of like um, describing this futuristic city feel, but it wasn't city. It wasn't like inner city. This was more of like suburbia, or more of a suburban feel. Described walking along a streetlight lit road, walking down the cement sidewalk, and houses on either side. Described quiet streets, and ultimately, like, things seem to be going fairly normal. Uh, my client arrived at her boyfriend's house, and they were having a meal after work, and they were just small talking and chatting about what had happened with their day or with their week. It all seemed pretty normal. And they talked about sitting outside and looking at the sun. And this is when things started to get a little weird. I mean, the futuristic description of the cityscape piqued my interest. I was like, okay, well, what's going on here? But my client described the sun setting and the sky as um, being more like looking different, looking unfamiliar. There was like a closeness that she described in the stars and the sun. Like she was like, I feel like I could just reach out and grab it. And it was just really interesting. I feel like it's hard for me to describe accurately what she was seeing and feeling because she was having a hard time describing it to me. All I can say though is I felt like a weirdness. I felt like, oh, this is strange. What's going on here? We ended up moving to another day, another time, because I'm trying to get the story. I'm trying to understand what are we seeing here? What is this lifetime about? And this is when things got real wild. So described looking out the window, it's like an evening time, it's dark out, and she starts to see these shadowy figures outside. And her and her boyfriend, the boyfriend seemed more stressed and more anxious than she did. There was some fear at first, which led them to they tried to call the police or they tried to call someone and discovered that the phones weren't working, which then made the boyfriend really freaking out. But for some reason at that point, my client in that past life, she didn't seem all that phased. She didn't seem all that worried. The boyfriend seemed really nervous, really worked up, but she didn't seem all that stressed. And I'm trying to understand, like, okay, why are you not scared, or why is he scared? And there was a lot of unknowns here. Um, Ultimately, she ended up getting upset with the boyfriend because he was so scared. And she tried to open the door. I shouldn't say try. She did open the door, and there's this shadowy figure outside. And this is when we got a real good look at what this being or this creature or this entity was. And she described a very tall, sort of like boxy shape silhouette, and that he was being, this shape was made of shadow, of dark, and that he had these horns on the top of his head. And describing this, like, I'm thinking, "Oh my god, that sounds like a demon, like, that sounds like some, like, dark entity, this is wild." And yet, she didn't seem to have any fear or, like, like, worry about what was gonna happen. She described this creature seeming curious. I was like, "What is," I'm trying to ask questions to get the information around, like, what is going on here? What is happening? Trying to get a sense of, like, why are these the reactions that these people are having? What are these beings? Who are these beings? And she just didn't seem fearful at all. She just seemed curious, and that she was sensing this curiosity from these beings, that all they were doing was watching. And I was like, "What are they watching? Why are they watching you?" Well, after that scene, the boyfriend ends up, like, freaking out and, like, closing the door and, like, yelling at her, and they end up arguing because he thinks isn't safe. She's like, "There's nothing to be scared of. We should just open the door and, like, see what these creatures want." Well, they end up fighting. She ends up leaving, and I'm like, "Oh my god, she's going, like, out into the dark with these creatures, like, what's gonna happen?" Like I said, I'm, like, on the edge of my seat this entire time. Like, this this is weird. This is spooky. This is a little freaky. I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, what's gonna happen? Is she gonna get, like, eaten by these things, or, like, possessed, or, like, what is going on? Well, she ends up walking home, and she's walking home, and this being is basically just tailing her. This shadowy horned creature is just walking, like, drifting behind her. Not walking, because it didn't walk, but it, like, drifted behind her, like sort of like a ghost, and followed her all the way to her house. And I'm like, are you scared? Like, are you, do you know these creatures? Like, do you know what's going on? Like, are these familiar? Like, I have no idea what's happening, right? I'm doing the best I can, but this is weird. This is freaky. And no, she didn't know these creatures. No, she didn't know why they were following her. It was wild. And ultimately, she ends up getting back to her house. She goes inside, and at this point, she's not scared. She's frustrated because they won't speak to her, they won't communicate. She's like tried talking to this creature a couple times, asking it what it wants, and all it does is follow her. All it does is watch. And so she's a little frustrated. So she goes inside and she tries to just get ready for bed and like go about her business, um, pretending that this creature isn't outside. Well, that doesn't really work for her. And so she ends up going back downstairs. She opens the door and she essentially invites it in. She's like, "Do you want to come in? Like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Stop lurking outside." Like, and in my head, I'm like, that's the last thing you do. You don't invite the like creepy horned shadow being into your house. Like, that's not what you do. But clearly, I didn't know what was going on in this story. So she invites it in, describes it just kind of like floating around, looking at her stuff, looking around the house, not really doing anything, not saying anything to her, not interacting with her directly, just kind of moving around and looking like it's just watching, looking at things. Ultimately, it ends up leaving, and in my efforts to then move to another day, another moment when um, where we could find some more information about this, we ended up jumping into a different lifetime. And so that does happen on occasion. The next story that I want to share with you guys, it also happened there too, but we weren't able to get more of the story there. But that is always the beautiful part of being able to talk with the higher self and being able to bring them into the conversation, because regardless of what past life experience you have, or parallel lifetime, or current lifetime, whatever comes up for you, we can ask the higher self about it, and it's really helpful to be able to get their perspective on what was shown. And so I asked them about this. What was this about? Who were these beings? All they would share with me was that this was a lifetime that was shown to my client, because they wanted her to see a moment when she trusted her intuition, where she trusted her knowing about different beings, and that ended up working out for her, because where her boyfriend was fearful and scared of these beings that they didn't recognize, that they didn't know, she didn't fall into that fear. She may have been a little frustrated at times, but she didn't fall into fear. She didn't allow um, their difference and the unknown uh, element here to scare her. And so they wanted her to see that, to understand a lifetime um, where uh, where she trusted her intuition. She trusted her knowing, her inner uh, knowing about the situation, about these beings. And so I thought that was really interesting, because what a strange experience, a strange lifetime. But clearly, that was exactly the flavor, exactly the lifetime that the higher self wanted, to illustrate that point, to show my client a lifetime where she didn't go along with the crowd, or in this case, her boyfriend, her partner. She trusted her own voice, her own knowing. She followed through with that. And I definitely, this is one lifetime where I would love to go back. I would love to take that client back and explore more of what was going on in that lifetime. Who were these beings? What planet were they on, or what time were they in? Because it didn't seem like standard Earth, but was definitely one of those spooky, edge of your seat sort of stories. Like I said, because the anticipation and the unknown, like it's just like, okay, what's gonna happen? Okay, what's gonna happen next? And at each step of this story, from when she first saw this shadowy creature outside the window, to the phone's not working, to the opening the door and then the creature just standing there and following her home. And then, I mean, it was just every step of the way, I was like, what's gonna happen? What is going on? Like waiting for sort of that horror movie experience to happen. And it didn't. And turns out my preconceived notions about creatures' appearances proved to be the whole point of it was showing the ways that we can assume and pass judgment on beings or on situations based on what uh, what we think rather than what actually is. So it was a really interesting lifetime. Definitely, if you guys have any experience with that sort of being, or like you've seen anything like that, or you've heard of anything like that, please let me know, because it's definitely one of those mysteries that's been um, that I've been holding on to, that I would love to find more information about. So let me know if you guys have any downloads about it, or any knowings about that. All right, so the last story that I'll share is just a brief one here, because this was a pretty brief story and situation. This was another session where we were shown a couple different lifetimes, and the overarching theme and themes that the higher self wanted to show were painted throughout these lifetimes. But the the scene and the life that I wanted to share with you guys was one uh, that I actually, well, so here, let me start here. So we dropped in on the day of death in this lifetime, and that can sometimes happen. Like I said, each session, each past life is a unique experience, and I never know what we're going to see or what's going to come up first, or um, it's always a mystery as we're navigating through that past life. Sometimes the information that we need is on that day of death, and that is all that we need to see from that lifetime. And so this was one of those situations where we dropped in, and my client is describing people in top hats and bonnets, and um, kind of a crowd in a town square. And I'm like, okay, what's happening? What are you seeing? What's going on? Well, she realizes that she is on a platform. She's up on like a raised platform, and up on that platform with her, as well as other people, is a guillotine. If you don't know what a guillotine is, it's that decapitation tool for unaliving people. And so she was lined up on this platform with a whole bunch of other people. And as we're settling in, and as I'm asking questions, we discover that she is here because she is being punished for heresy. She had said things that she wasn't supposed to say. She had spoken words that she wasn't supposed to speak, and so she was in this situation where she was going to lose her life. And did say that she believed that it was the French Revolution, that it felt like that time period, it felt like that energy. Sometimes people can identify the period, sometimes people can identify the year, sometimes people can't. It really depends on what's most appropriate, and is that information helpful to the client. Um, but we discovered that she, in this lifetime, was a woman as well. She was leading this group of folks, and the rest of the group was pretty scared. They were pretty fearful and upset at where they found themselves, that they were losing their lives in this way. Uh, she, my client, though, was not. She was ready, as she said, for her fate. There was a real interesting, like, braggadocious is the word that comes to mind. There's like very much an attitude behind her voice as she's talking, as she's sharing these experiences of this past life. She definitely took on some of that energy of that personality, and there was yeah, this attitude behind her voice. And she described uh the hatred, and like her voice, when people are just like, oh, like, they hate that person, and you can hear it in their voice, you can feel it in their voice. She's talking about this man who's standing behind her, who's facilitating this execution, and that this was in fact someone she knew. This was a someone that she grew up with, uh, and that was in this past life, and that he was doing this because there was this conflict between the classes, and that she had said things she wasn't supposed to, like I said, and that's what put her in this position where she was going to lose her life. There was definitely a feeling of unfairness to it. There was this sentiment expressed that, well, the general population, like those people watching, they get it, they understand, they're in the same position where the wealthy, the people with power, the people with the money, um, they the general population like gets it. They understand that what my client was saying was true, that this past life version of her was speaking the truth, that was that it wasn't like it was actual heresy, but because it was against the people in power, obviously things didn't go so well. This was a moment where I really wanted to get more of the story. I wanted to understand how we got to this point. What was it that led to this moment of execution? Unfortunately, when we tried to move, my client jumped into another lifetime. And again, it was a moment where we were able to see the overarching themes once we spoke with the higher self. But when I asked the higher self why they showed this lifetime, this moment of execution, this moment of heresy, it was uh, it was a part of the pattern that was shown throughout the other lifetimes. This pattern of saving others and of taking responsibility for others. And so the higher self described my client in all of these other lifetimes, uh, taking this position of saving, of taking responsibility beyond herself, and that served her then. Those were the right ways to act, the right ways to move through those lifetimes. But in her present lifetime, they were calling for her to move past that pattern, to let it go. They said that this pattern was no longer serving her in this lifetime, and that part of what they wanted her to do was to let this go so that she could enjoy her life in a different way in this lifetime. And there was certainly some heavier moments in those past lives that we saw and those experiences that she was shown. And they really wanted her to see that through line, and how that pattern, while it made sense in those lifetimes, while it had a lot of merit and worth in those lifetimes, now is not the time to carry that pattern forward. And so, all in all, uh, that lifetime was a really interesting one, because we dropped in at the day of death, and we dropped in at this really like very momentous moment. Um, I could feel the energy as we were on that platform. Like I could feel again that anticipation. It wasn't quite as prolonged and like high energy as that other session that I shared, where I was like on the edge of my seat the whole time. But this was definitely a moment where once I realized what was going on, I was like, "Ooh, okay, what's gonna happen?" You know, the anticipation rose, and the I don't know. I just there's something about these spooky stories which is just really fun for the season, and that's why I wanted to bring them up. Um, Certainly, most past life experiences have some element of spook to them. Not all though. I mean, I've had some really beautiful, beautiful, love-filled experiences, past lives filled with light um, and cheer and positive feelings. So it's certainly not the only experiences that can come up. But I did want to pick some of my favorites, um, some of the spooky ones, some of the ones that have that mystery and uh, that sort of ghost story element, where you don't exactly know what happened at the end, because that's part of the thrill of the story is the mystery, is the unknown. And so, all in all, I hope you guys enjoyed the spooky stories today. I hope you enjoyed these fun forays into the spirit realm, into past lives, and that I hope that you resonated with something, or that you just found some good enjoyment and entertainment in the stories that came through. Like I said, I always try to remember to bring in the higher self perspective, to bring in what uh, what that underlying purpose was in that past life experience and why that was shown to my client, because I always want to make sure that that's really clear, and that message is front and center with past life work, because it really is all about how do we help you with your past life experiences? How does that information, how does that knowledge and that understanding, as well as the energetic work of release, like how does that help you in your current lifetime? Um, and it really is about that. So, all in all, I hope that you guys enjoyed the stories today. I hope that you enjoyed these past life experiences and these ghostly and spooky uh, scenarios. Before I go, I, of course, want to wish you guys a happy Halloween, a happy Samhain, a beautiful season, and of course, remind you guys to check on my bookings page. Remember, if you go to the bookings page, you'll pull up my set more here, and you'll see my bookings. If you're unsure of what to book, feel free to just hit that free preliminary consultation, and we can talk about your goals, talk about your what you're looking for out of the experience, and I can certainly answer any questions you have and make sure that you're feeling good about that. If the session stories today, or if the connection with your higher self resonates with you, if you're looking for that connection to your subconscious, to the part of you that um, that has all the answers to this lifetime as well as all the other ones, if you're looking for that insight into your incarnation and what's going on, answers to your questions around your purpose, your career, your relationships, your higher self has those answers, and I encourage you to either book that higher guidance or that quantum healing hypnosis technique session, because your higher self wants to talk with you. They want to share the information that will help you in your current lifetime. They want to help you with whatever it is going on in your life. And a reminder, we are still doing that 10% off for October. So when this video airs, you'll have one more day. So the 31st is the last day to get that 10% off for the past life services. So make sure you take advantage of that while you can. If you're looking for that higher self connection, book one of these two. Or if you're looking for just that past life experience, I am more than happy to guide you through that. And that would be just this past life regression offering. All right. Well, I think without further ado, guys, I will let you go. And I'm wishing you all the best. Make sure you join Corbin and I on Saturday morning. We'll be doing our lunar cycle show for the Taurus full moon. I think I have that correct. Taurus full moon. Time's been wonky per usual, guys. So pardon me if I don't remember exactly. But hope to see you there. And other than that, make sure you like, share, subscribe on the way out, and share your own ghost stories in the comments below. All right. Sending you guys love, and we'll